Good morning to you all our fervent viewers of High Television. You are welcome to the Monday's edition of the program. Press brief this fine Monday morning of the 15th of January 2024. Thanks for watching, and the program, the papers always come first. So we'll be back to give you what they're saying. Meanwhile, on the second part of the program, we'll be taking on our reviewer for today. Stay tuned. Hello there, viewers of High Television. You're welcome to the program. For presentation, I am attending Larry Kevin Tabot. We start off with the first paper for today. Municipal updates of Victor Bamacham for this morning says at end of confab in Mahua, bishops denounce riots and poverty, terrorism. You can read that story on page 5 and 2 on municipal updates for this morning. And I said municipal updates, Yaoundé Muslim faithful pray for peace in Cameroon, and we'll take you to the revival of the Limbe My 6 beach. Limbe Chiefs Bakweri Youth praise new proprietor Macklins Ebon. You can find more on that paper for this morning. But Mandatory Council prioritizes roads WhatsApp in 2024. 717 million CFA France budget in that council structure of Bamenda 3. We crossed over to Luju of Haman Manor for today. Talks of questions returned to the automatic toll gates of Cameroon. You can read that story on that said paper, as many pundits are preoccupied that Cameroon does not have good roads. But what explains for this automatic toll gates? You can find more on that publication of Luju. Obituary says Bertrand Ole is dead. You can find that sad one on page 11. Cote d'Ivoire African Cup of Nations 2023 report on Cameroon enters the scene this evening. You can find more on that publication for today. We cross over to Mutation for this morning. Mutation reports on Indomitable Lions. It says Abubakar Vincent of the Nerves. You can find that story on page 12 on Loju, as he will not be making his way on the first match for this evening. Crossing over to this other story on the said paper that talks of transportation of service of goods. It says the dynamic Cameroon and Chad and Central African Republic when it comes to frontier transportation between these three countries. We move over to Santé Actu for this day. Santé Actu reports on the transformation of the transformation of the health system in Cameroon. It says the advancement of measure papables. You can find that story on that set paper on page 5 to 7 on Santé Actu. And prevention of certain diseases in the country. It talks of some health experts that are at the front line, making sure that certain diseases in Cameroon are being prevented to its optimal. We move over to the anecdotes of Jean-Pierre Morubelinga. The anecdote for this morning reports on the 2024 finance law. It says IRPP suspended. Get to read that suspension from the Minister of Finance, Louis Paul Motaze of IRPP. In that paper, the blessing of same-sex couple in the Catholic Church. It says Bishops of Africa says no to what the Pope Francis is saying towards the blessing of same-sex couple in the Catholic Church. We move away from that story. We take you to talk something else this morning, this time around, with mental health. The paper reports on how patients of mental health are being treated freely at the L'Hôpital Jameau in Yaoundé. You can find that story on that side paper for today. Quotidian Economy for this morning talks of the evaluation of price of public enterprises. As it says, what are the preoccupations of some major public enterprises? Get read that story on the economic newspaper Quotidian Economy for today. We take you now to the Trans-Border Corridor of Douala, Chad and Central African Republic. The paper reports on the amelioration of this road sector or trans-border business sector of the Samak sub-region. We remain in Gabon this time around with this sum of 854 billion CFA francs that was collected as revenue between Gabon and Cameroon transborder locality. Get to read that story on that publication for this morning. La Meteo for this morning talks of this one made in Cameroon on the import substitution policy. It says, what will made in Cameroon look like in 2024 when it comes to the country's import substitution policy stipulated by President Paul Biya. The Guardian Post for today celebrates 3000th edition. It says the Guardian Post, the first English language newspaper in Cameroon to hit 3000 edition. So you can find that story on the Guardian Post for today. Tico, this human interest story, it says widow dies as boat transporting Baptist women capsizes off the coast of Tico. Wrote special AFCON page, or you can find that daily on the Guardian Post on their special AFCON page dedicated to the African Cup of Nations ongoing in Ivory Coast in the West African nation. We move over to the other publication for today, Code du Parlement for this morning. A Code du Parlement for this morning says Abubakar Abdurrahman mobilizes the population of Mada and Tokombere to say thank you to the Right Honorable Kabaige Jibril, Speaker of Cameroon National Assembly. You can read that story as they mobilize other youths in the locality to make sure that they registered as the election register is open in the locality of Tokombere and Mada, all in the far north region of Cameroon. We move over to Bamenda with the pilots. The pilot for today says hundreds opening accounts at Dean Cooperative Credit Union Limited. TB Joshua raped me in his bathroom when I was 17. Namibian journalist alleges. You can find more on the allegations and counter allegations on the late venerated man of God, TB Joshua. We'll move away from that TB Joshua story to the bishops of Cameroon who denounces terrorism in the country as has just ended their National Episcopal Conference in the town of Maroua in the far north region. Meet ministers who are 20 plus years in government. You have the likes of Jacques Famdongo, you have the likes of Madeleine Twente and a host of others. Get to read that story on the pilot, the paper from Bamenda. We move over to Le Drapeau of Karotamba for this morning. Talks of this special center for the elderly in Yaoundé that was just inaugurated. You can find more on Le Drapeau newspaper for today. New Year wishes to the minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense, Joseph Betty Asomo. It talks of the prospect of the defense sector in Cameroon for 2024. Get to read more details on page 3 to page 4 on that publication for today. The FIAC 12 for this morning to report on Noah Vaughan. He says a developer of technologies in the agro-industrial sector of the country who keeps on revitalizing the agricultural sector of Cameroon. The portrait, he says, the portrait of Matt Angel Minjai, he says 13 years at the service of the promotion of investment. That is the late Director General of the National Investment Fund, who died in a Turkish hospital some weeks back. We crossed over to the import substitution policy of Cameroon. It says an increase have actually resonated in the import substitution policy of the country. And we move over to Cameroon Tribune for this morning. It says African Cup of Nations 2023, the place of the Indomitable Lions, as they will be playing today. In that paper, preserving peace, prayer for Cameroon, as the imams of Cameroon join together to pray for peace and prosperity to reign in the nation Cameroon, as they equally prayed for President Paul Biya. You can find that story on Cameroon Tribune for this morning. And I said Cameroon Tribune for today. The paper report on tourism school announced when it comes to promoting Cameroon as a touristic destination in the continent and the world at large. We take you now to Buea with the post for this day says City D plan projects to ease circulation in the city of Yaoundé. Issues at stake. The paper reports on leaders and challenges of personal example. Meet Maldin King Joya. The paper reports on elite leader, mentor, life and business coach, propelling enterprises, individuals to success. We take a bow with this story on Kamasearch budget. CFA France 47.5 million. CFA France 24 launch of the action plan. You get to read that story on that set publication for today. And for our show for this morning, report on MRC denounces the violation of the law by Elekam. You can find that story on that set paper for today. Phase 2 of the Yaoundé Douala Express Road. It talks of the accords that was signed between the Ministry of Public Works and the CFHEC. Get to read that story. An MOU signed between these two entities. Let's take a bow out of the studio with the last paper on our disposal. We'll get into the nation now. The nation reports on Supreme Court verdicts. APC didn't treat off Kano Plateau. We get to read that story on that said paper. Wasteful, Eagle failed to win AFCON opener game. You can find that story as the Super Eagles of Nigeria had a 2-2 draw with Equatorial Guinea. That's the Zalang National of Equatorial Guinea. And we take you to Edo 2024. APC invites Oshomole, Azi, Eyamo, and others when it comes to the elections in that part of Nigeria. The Punch for this morning reports on 7 major marketers get approval to sell Dangote fuel. You can read that story on that said paper. And in that said paper, we take you to this other story. Ex-minister's friend offer to pay the sum of 50 million naira for abducted Abuja girls. Let's take a bow out of the studio with the last paper we are having for today. That is La Voix du Centre for today. It talks of General Thierry Marchal, a diplomat of proximity. That's a French ambassador to Cameroon. We wrap up with this African global logistics. It says African football and how they intend to promote on that. Get to read that story on La Voix du Centre. Well, La Voix du Centre viewers, this is where we'll put a stop on the first part of the program. But do not move a muscle. I'll also be back with our review as seated here with us. Once more, you're heartily welcome on board the program. If you are just joining us, you're on Surprise Brief, and this is the second part of the program we've reserved for our review. Our reviewer for this morning is Lucas G. Good morning to you, Lucas, and you're heartily welcome.
Good morning, thank you. It's a pleasure being here this morning.
All right, we start off with the Horizon newspaper for this morning. Have as lead story the Horizon newspaper for today.
You know, the situation with regards to CDC daily is becoming something else. It appears the corporation is unable to manage itself. You know, when the British took over the corporation, and because of mismanagement and inability to manage the corporation, at one point they had to put it back on sale, and owners of the same company bought it, and they were able to do the right things. I think similarly it is where we are today in Cameroon. Before the coming of the Anglophone crisis or the armed conflict rocking the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, CDC had gotten into a position where difficulties already had signals, and the management is quite aware of it. I can still remember that we had a portion of the banana on this side where we had Del Monte, and you know Del Monte is not CDC.
Yeah.
This is to tell you that they privatized part of their banana farms to this company, reason being that they were unable to manage it. And today we are facing a similar situation as during the period when the British took over after they defeated the Germans in Cameroon. Why am I going back to this? It is because the history is repeating itself. Yes, we have the armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. In a company, at one point in time, there are certain things that you have to lay off. For example, if you allocated 200 francs for my daily movement, because we are into crisis and we need to pay others, because the top management of this company still receives their salary. They receive their salary. The branch manager or the estate managers, they receive their salary. But the people who do not receive salary are those that think do not matter, whereas these are the people who risk their lives daily. Now, in terms of the security of some of these people who have been killed, and those who take this time out and they are on the field daily to protect that which is left in this corporation, I don't find it very comfortable when their salaries are not coming forth. I think something is happening somewhere and someone needs to do something. The government of Cameroon, CDC is a parastatal, and we know that CDC headquarters and many other things is not called by the management in Bota. It is being decided by Yaoundé. A greater part of what happens in CDC is decided by Yaoundé. And because Yaoundé makes decision, I think that the money allocated to pay the salaries wasn't enough, despite the hand as put in quote help of the government. The government in this case knows exactly what.
But permit me to come here. According to the general manager of CDC, Franklin Gonenje, he says CDC they have been doing all it takes to make sure that they pay salaries of workers. But as it stands, the non-state actors, they always come to sabotage their efforts and vandalize a lot of equipment and other gadgets in that parastatal in the southwest region.
Yes, we are not ruling out the fact that CDC is trapped also in the context of the armed conflict, and the non-state actors are bent towards seeing that CDC does not operate the way she used to operate. I want to say this thing. I think that the time also has come for us to carry out some other investigations. You see, you may be coming to this within your paper. I want to go into it before you come to it.
Okay.
If you look at the situation with TB Joshua, Now, ills were happening and some people waited only after his death.
Purported alleged use.
Well, you may want to put it that way. The facts are on the ground. Yeah, they were happening. So people waited only after his death, when he died, before they had to unleash or release what they were working on. Now, if you look at CDC, I said this some time ago that it is time we put up an invisible eye to see what is happening. During periods of armed conflict, people loot themselves and present the situation to the public that things are not moving. And this is why armed conflict is never the best solution, because the spillover effect. Now, we are saying that there are workers who have worked. There are people who have been working. My landlady works with CDC. And I tell you the truth, the story she tells me daily, they are not comfortable. They are not stories that indeed would comfort you. They are not comforting at all. The workers are not comfortable with the conditions on the ground. And when you work with such conditions and yet you don't receive your salary, what exactly do you expect the people? So I think that we have to look into this more. Like I said, in time past, the government of Cameroon knows how much she takes or she got from CDC. And she knows how much she takes from CDC every year, despite this. So if it means that this money be allocated so that the workers can arrears, now you may want to ask yourself questions. So who has received salary in CDC? You still find some of the people cruising in some of the cars that still consume a certain amount of money. And if you were to look at what they say daily as that which is allocated for day to spend, it is still relatively very high. So it is high time we reduce these things to manage other aspects within the corporation. Because the person who goes to work, would you imagine that those who work at the health department of CDC have not received salaries? So how do you take care of the people? Those who work in the farms have not received salary. So how do you take care of the crops? They too have families. So I think we have to. Now, within the context of the armed conflict, it is obvious that the situation is already at hand. So if we are talking about arrears in areas where farmers are going to work, it is something different.
Okay.
Yes, because in some of these cases, we are talking about arrears in areas where farmers are going to work. The people work. If you go to certain areas of the palm plantation, the banana plantation, the rubber plantation, you will find workers working. So what is the reason for they working and they are not receiving their salaries? We know that there are areas where the NSACs or the non-state armed groups have taken absolute control. But the areas where the corporation still have control over, at least you can be reasonable enough that, okay, yes, you haven't worked for a certain period.
Okay.
Yet, because the problem is, these salaries are not accumulated only within this period of these 7 years counting of this conflict. Like I said,
but it's 7 years actually amplified most of.
Yes,
I can say 95%.
Amplified. There was already mismanagement within the corporation, and because of the mismanagement, it led to this. Because it became catastrophic when the non-state armed groups got in and also took over certain areas. Of course, I am not happy when I look at the land lying desolate. Yeah. The land from when you take from Miselele, particularly where you had the banana plantation, it lies there. It's desolated. Everything there is, nothing is happening on the ground. I am not happy, but we know that CDC in some areas, they are carrying out their activities. The workers of this area should not be among those who shouldn't receive their salary, because they are due their salary, and I think it is only fair enough that they should be paid.
Definitely. Lucas, we'll move away from the CDC saga this time around with Luju. Luju is interested on the automatic toll gates across the nation. As many pundits say, Cameroon does not have roads. Why do you come in with billions of CFA francs to mount up automatic toll gates? As the paper titles that as questions returns to the automatic toll gates of the country.
We have talked on this and we will keep talking, because I think if I call on Cameroonians to be civically engaged within the nation building concept or in the nation building concept, it is also important that I call on those who manage the country to also be very civil, and they have to understand that no matter what you do, you are not helping the situation on the ground. I tell you the truth, according to President Paul Biya, we had about 70 kilometers of road, 700 kilometers of road tapped as per his report in 2023. If you look at our roads, we do not have roads in Cameroon. We literally do not have roads in Cameroon. We are not saying these things because we detest the government in place. No. The government in place, as I know, as per the law and the constitution, they are employers of the people. As such, every employer should note this. You do not call the shot. The people does. It is unfortunate that the echo chamber, known by many as the parliament, is helping in bringing down Cameroonians and their aspiration. When you look at what is happening on the ground, I did not actually follow a certain segment of the last parliamentary section or session where they sat to decide on the finance law. But what I know for sure is we did not get that which we ought to have from the ministers, from the Prime Minister himself, as concerning road situation in Cameroon. In the sense that no right-thinking person is going to have a house built with bamboo and you decide to put the most expensive roof on it when the pillars cannot carry the roof.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a situation where we find ourselves. That we are talking about automatic target. The figures are still flying. It is alleged that it is about 40 billion CFA francs. I think what we have along the Boya-Douala highway as an example. And it was contracted to a certain French company. This is their work. This is what we say. You decided to put new wine in an old bottle. Jesus said, what difference would that make? Jesus said, if you light a candle and you place it under the table, then you have not actually illuminated the house, because the purpose for lighting that candle is for illumination. And so since the candle is under the table, eventually the house,
you put your money and the things,
it has not started.
Yeah, it hasn't started.
It hasn't started. What we see, the demo which is ongoing, is a human being says wait, he clicks, and the human being, perhaps he places a coin. We don't know if it's going to be banknote or coins. Now my interest is, why should we have such a wonderful target on an earth road? Because all the roads in Cameroon, all the roads, we know, we can't hide it. All the roads in Cameroon are in bad shape. So where are the roads for us to have such targets? That we have decided to spend money, which perhaps we ought to have committed this money to construct roads, yet we decided to take this money that we want to build automatic target. Well, we know that embezzlers are still there, because the essence, according to proponents of the government, is to curb embezzlement, is to curb mismanagement, is to curb corruption. But we know that when this money is still taken and placed in the treasury, and when contracts are being awarded, we still know that corruption still takes place in these sectors. The people still go there to perpetuate corruption. So what is the essence for us to put automatic target on no roads? It's like I live where we are, and I'm airlifted to go into the deepest part of the forest in Mamfe, and you construct a castle there for me, where there is no road for me to go to that castle.
Okay.
And you expect that after you have airlifted me to that particular place, I should find my way to my castle. What will be the use of that particular wonderful house constructed in the midst of that forest?
So in other key developmental structures.
And we have to learn how to prioritize the needs of Cameroonians. We were not in any need of this. We were not in any need of this. I think that if we had taken it as President Biya said it when he came to power, when he talked about moral probity, he talked about rigor and moralization. If he had continued with this concept, he would have moralized his ministers and his workers who are his immediate aide or subordinate to take this down to those who do the work given to them by the Cameroonian people.
Okay.
That is, there was no need, because what is happening is this. They believe that those who receive the cash, you need to know what are the priority projects for Cameroonians.
All right. Look, as we leave that situation of the automatic toll gates at that, we cross over to politics. This time around with Info Asho. Info Asho newspaper for this morning report on the MRC denounces the violation of the law when it comes to electoral processes. She went further to say no opposition party can win the CPDM with the present dispensation when it comes to ELECAM and other electoral laws.
I get this guy right. Okay, I get him very, very right. I want to say this to him particularly and his militants and sympathizers of the MRC party. Now, I find this contradictory in the sense that you are the same persons who have called on Cameroonians to go to the voters registry, or they should go to the registry of ELECAM and ensure that they pen down their names on the voter registry, and they should obtain their card to be eligible to vote come 2025. And he is the same person in his end of year talk. I wouldn't put it speech, I don't know exactly how to address that. He said this, that there is an alliance of parties for the upcoming elections. And he comes back to tell Cameroonians that the current dispensation cannot take away the Biya team in place. The question is, if he finds the CPDM as a junta who have hijacked the country, why then call on Cameroonians to go to ELECAM and register for elections? I think that we should first begin by encouraging Cameroonians to register. Then we should call on them to be civil enough to protect their votes.
Aside from the votes, they will say the violation of the electoral code is being violated.
Yes, there is a particular article law which I support this. But to say that the current dispensation, because summarily he is saying that the procedure put in place by ELECAM, where the divisional officers and the rest are the ones who should receive the ballot boxes after a while, and he feels that easily it can be stuffed, because stuffing indeed takes place during certain period according to what he says. Well, I will still say these things. They are all allegations. We cannot prove it for sure, because during this period we are not there. We have not carried out an investigation. I think it is also an opportunity for you as an investigative journalist to why not work on this issue, or maybe your media house may have working on this. Yes, it will be great. So that Cameroonians should see these things and understand, if at all there is stuffing of the ballot boxes during this process, or difficult for an opposition to take over the Etudi Palace. Please, this is another form to discourage Cameroonians. Some of us have already begun the campaign that it is time for an Anglophone to be the president of this country. And in the days ahead, we shall also be moving down to the streets of Cameroon to tell Cameroonians that it is time for us to have an Anglophone as a president for sustainable peace and development of the country. So Maurice Kamto cannot come up at this hour. We are canvassing for them to be civically involved so that we can make this process effective come 2025, because we want to see an Anglophone in Etudi Palace during this period. So Maurice Kamto should please, he should not contradict himself. when he talks of he is not very comfortable for some other person to take over to the palace, whereas we see an Anglophone come 2025 and we want Cameroonians to register if they want sustainable peace. Be they those in the north, they should take out this time and register. Let Maurice Kamto not actually discourage the people from registering.
For curiosity's sake, who is your candidate?
As it stands, this country is going to have a better and a sustainable peace situation than that which we are currently having. So Maurice Kamto, I still emphasize, Maurice Kamto for no reason should discourage Cameroonians during this process.
Okay, we talk on religion with the just ended National Episcopal Conference that took place in the town of Marwa in the Far North region. It says bishops denounce rise in poverty, terrorism in the country.
That is for sure. I queue, I sign up, I log in to this particular position of the last Episcopal Conference which took place in the north with the bishops. Poverty. Poverty.
Weaponized poverty.
And the bad thing is, it is not only poverty which is resulting from someone's laziness or lack of skill. It is a weaponized poverty, which means it is somehow something that some people are using to leverage on others so as to continuously having their grip on these people and to ensure that these people should never see any other option nor any other person as a solution to their problems, because they want to always lord over the people, to continuously milking them and to ensure that they have them in absolute control. Please, what the bishop said is indeed what is happening. What the bishop said, they talked about the rising terrorism as they did condemn. It is indeed. Cameroon was actually brought in the data and information on terrorist organizations and countries suffering from terrorism. What is most interesting in this is, it's not considered an area under terrorism. It is the far north. It is where Boko Haram and the anti-Balaka or the Balaka rebels in the East region.
In the East region.
Yes. So, coming from the Central African Republic, particularly. So, this is the situation. So, some soldiers of Cameroon paid homage.
From that extraction.
Particularly children from the extraction. And we should not forget that we had seen also police officers from the same extraction who decided to make the Sultan feel quite comfortable in times like this. Perhaps, in Cameroon, we have the issue of I have sent the name. So please put that name. I recommend this person, so put that person. We know in Cameroon, the kind of people who are brought in certain places, we know those who always lobby, we know they are godfathers. Apparently, some of these situations, except for those who decided to take to the social media this time around to tell us what usually happens, how they will need to go back and congratulate those who recommended them. It's unfortunate that this time around, after they left the West region where they have their training there in one of the camps, Kutaba, they said it was also good for us to why not go back and acknowledge the person who made us where we are today. And you should not also forget that these people, they have some very traditional ties. I think they are one of the clans in Cameroon that still do respect their leaders, their traditional leaders. So they felt it was only a good thing to do that. What is unfortunate is they did not realize that some of the actions, some of the activities violate the code of conduct. Some of the activities were they acted ultra-virus with regards to this, because the things they did according to what the military code says were not supposed to be.
Hadn't they had an elderly person who is of military orientation to have advised them not to go about with this journey that they embarked on?
Probably they did. Let me tell you this, and a lot is happening in this country which Cameroonians will realize only later, and that is why I say only an anglophone president will solve most of these problems. Yes. Now, when you look at the situation on the ground, you will realize that they were not totally blank. They knew, because they teach them. They teach them in school. They teach them during their trainings. They teach them in camps. They know. They know that this is done only to a particular person. There is something happening beyond what we see.
Okay.
And beyond what we see is known in time past only when it is manifested. And what was manifested by these soldiers tells already. It already brings out what intention there is in the minds of the Sultan. Because the Sultan had every single right to call them to order. And I want to say that we should not also forget that the Sultan's family to that of the president, they have a bilateral relationship.
Yeah.
We know the role the father played. We know the role the grandfather played. We know the role the great-grandfather played in the process of becoming a nation as Cameroon. So I understand that some of this, the sacredness of that particular action, they felt it was only good to why not make our own leader. But there are others who knew what they were doing. So the minister acted in line with what it is with regards to the code of conduct as per the law in Cameroon. So I think Joseph Betia Asomo is okay. The decision is indeed a good one, and let these guys be disciplined. I wish that such disciplines should go through whenever they are also found in other excesses within the context of the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon. I will not stop saying this because we know what happens in the Northwest and Southwest of Cameroon.
Okay.
We know the excesses of the military. This is amongst their excesses.
Like that of Okoyong?
Like that of Okoyong and many other places where this woman was killed, this 30-year-old woman was killed. Pregnant for that matter.
All right.
If they should sanction the military as they did to those who went and paid homage to the Sultan of Bamoun, it will go a long way in bringing some order in the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon.
Okay.
I see that action, that particular action by those who carried that act in Bamoun. It is terrorism. It is treason. That is a crime against the state. That what is reserved for the commander-in-chief
is given to your chief.
To your chief.
Right.
I think that is treason.
So
I would expect that such persons should also be jailed, like we have the Ayok Tabes.
Some say attempted coup.
It is for sure. It is for sure. That's treason. Okay, so right. because we know that the Sultan probably would always maybe make a call, and maybe he has made a call and maybe also plead on their behalf that where my children were only innocent, they did not understand this and that. Like I said, the family of the Sultan. We saw Frank Olivier Emmanuel Biya. That should be somewhere last year or the visiting the Sultan.
Nabin Bobonjoya.
Good.
Okay, we leave that palaver for now. We take a bow out of the studio with the last paper for today. That is the paper from the northern region, Lloyd Sahel of Gibe Baitama for this morning report on His Grace Andrew Nkiawo doubles as the president of the Cameroon Episcopal Conference, following their just ended Episcopal Conference in the town of Marua. He says, we have banned all priests not to give any blessings to same-sex couple or persons in same-sex relationships?
I applaud them. For this. The law in Cameroon already penalizes anyone found in same-sex marriage. I think the Cameroon Penal Code, I think section 243 or thereabout, it already penalizes anyone. And the same law, I think, also penalizes rape and the rest. So it is obvious. They do not even need to bother themselves. I think this was a signal. This was actually meant for the papacy. This was to Rome, because if this is for Cameroon, well, in Cameroon, our law does not permit same-sex relationship. So the good news is the law in Cameroon doesn't permit that. So I wish they would have supported it with the law, so that the papacy should receive it with this firmness that we, the Bishop of Cameroon, besides the church that we pastor, doesn't approve this as per our culture. The law of Cameroon, citing that particular section, does not permit this, and we stand with the law so that papacy should know, because there is no need bothering yourself saying that you do not. As a matter of fact, if any of these guys, before this open position by the bishop, if anyone carries this act to bless or even to entertain maybe a complaint by a guy to the bishop, or even during confession, I want to say this, during confession.
No, that is secrecy.
No,
according to the
by the canon law, it's secrecy, right?
Yeah, it's secrecy.
By the canon law, it's secrecy.
Whatsoever thing I confesses to you,
don't tell. It stays with you, right? It stays
within you and I.
Yes, but I want to say that the law of Cameroon is above the canon laws. The canon law is not that which operates in Cameroon.
So in order, what are you saying in essence?
What I'm saying in essence is, if a man comes to you or a girl comes to you and say, I'm a lesbian, bishop,
pray for him.
Priest, please, you will pray for that person, which is your duty. It will be good also that you help the state of Cameroon to open up and tell us who that person is, because we may also
no, that goes contrary.
No,
it goes contrary to canon laws.
See, it's like do you know what the Bible tells us?
No.
When the minister Paul Atangaji in Kumba talked about authorities in place put by the government, by the God, quoted in Romans chapter 13. The lady who objected did so out of I mean, I don't know what spirit was in her, but I want you to understand that if you read that particular portion of the scripture,
yes,
it says that it is only when we act against the laws of that particular country that the wrath of the government in place will come after us. So you cannot sit and tell me that your profession says, I'm talking to the church right now, because this was particularly to the church.
Okay.
You will not sit in church and someone comes up and says, I raped a girl, and you will keep it because that person came and confessed to you that I raped a girl. No.
That is what the canon law says and what the Bible says. Yeah, if we
no. The Bible says the law was put in place.
If we should go by what it stipulates, so I think it stays at that.
Yes, Lucas, as per Romans 13.
Yeah, Lucas, we're gonna leave it at that. Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure being here always. I want to end with this, please. The 2025 is going to be a wonderful year in Cameroon, and this year is going to be amongst the best years that Cameroonians will ever have, because an Anglophone president is going to rise. So, for this to come to fruition, I'm calling on every Cameroonian to go to the polls. And when you go to the polls, don't forget, as you register, have in mind that a Cameroonian of an Anglophone is coming up. I am not talking about the things people sit in quarters and discuss. No. I am saying that register for elections. We have 3 elections: municipal, legislative, and presidential. Now, in all these elections,